Welcome. My name is Sarah, and I am the Education Assistant at Dunlop Art Gallery. Welcome to tonight's program, Artist Talks and Performance, multiPLAY. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that Dunlop Art Gallery and the lands on which we are virtually gathered on this evening are situated on Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. So a little bit of background about this program. multiPLAY Digital Community Engagement is a 2-year national arts project examining digital strategies for improvising artists to share their work and engage with the general public and a range of different community groups, partners, galleries, and festivals. multiPLAY artists include Rebecca Keynes, Holophon Audio Arts, James Harley, Helen Pridmore, Michelle Stewart, as well as Michael Waterman and John Campbell, who I will introduce momentarily. So Michael Waterman is a visual and audio artist whose work focuses on sound installation, improvisational performance, and experimental radio art. He is especially interested in performance on found objects and altered electronics, which he fashions into unique musical instruments. He has presented his sound installations and performed extensively in museums and festivals across Canada, the United States, and in telematic performances globally. Waterman is a founding member of a number of sound art collaborators, most notably his audio collage ensemble, Manlisher Carcano, who have explored a range of recorded performance and transmission contexts over their 30-year history. For the past 20 years, Waterman has hosted the weekly collaborative radio show, the Manlisher Carcano Radio Hour, regularly connecting participants from up to 12 cities across North America and Europe. In recent years, he has been exploring the creative potential of off-grid pirate radio installations. Waterman recently moved to Ottawa, Ontario from St. John's, Newfoundland, where he has been living since 2010. Welcome. As well, I'd like to take a moment to introduce John Campbell. John Campbell is an emerging artist who explores agency, interactivity, self, and perception of self, informed by a contemporary climate where avatar, person, online profiles blur, and where human and machine are becoming increasingly difficult to differentiate. He comes to the field of interdisciplinary arts practice from a professional career in software architecture, network engineering, and web integration. His current art practice includes kinetic sculptures, new media, and sound installations that utilize his mechanical, electronic, and software engineering knowledge. He creates playful and disturbing interactive experiences that demystify and interrogate, using a mix of repurposed older technologies combined with experiments at the unstable age of emerging software and hardware that is about to be taken up by contemporary societies in yet to be determined ways. He is interested in interdisciplinary work, which blurs the boundaries between computer programming and artistic expression because it emphasizes the inherent creativity of technological design. He has many years of experience as a leader in an online gaming environment, leading teams of hundreds of people in completing group goals. This has given him insight into representation of the self and perception of others in a world where all interaction is via an avatar. In the past 5 years, he has moved from working as a technologist in service of other artists to an emerging artist in his own right, which with art projects featured in galleries, festivals, artist residencies, and speaker series in Canada, the Netherlands, and China. Welcome, folks. And to our viewers that are watching, please note that you are welcome to ask questions or leave comments throughout the program for the artists this evening in the comments section there. So I'm going to pass things over to Michael for his artist talk. So we'll say bye to Ian and John for a moment. All right, Michael, I'm going to put your PowerPoint up and then I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Sarah, for that intro. My video piece that is installed here at the Dunlop Gallery called Am I Awake or Am I Dreaming is actually part of a, I think I might take this off, I can hear myself better, is part of a more complex installation that that is actually currently on show at the Rooms Provincial Museum in Newfoundland as part of the group show Hello Land, Art, War, and the Wireless Imagination. It was also intended to be exhibited at the Dunlop Gallery, but due to COVID, I had to scale down what I sent. And I'm kind of pleased because it gives me an opportunity to separate this component out from the larger installation. However, I probably need to begin, in order to describe it, I need to really begin by describing the impetus for that. And oh yes, there's the first slide. Slide of it. Before I actually describe radio rhizome, also, I have to actually kind of give a context for how I kind of create my installations. I think pretty much everything I do is in some way connected to my long-running radio art collaboration, Manlisher Carcano. I usually, and it's a kind of a context where I improvise with people up to a dozen or 18 people in different cities across North America and Europe. We basically have a policy: any sounds are permitted. Anybody who wants to can join it, and it's a free improvised audio radio show that lasts 2 hours each week. As I mentioned, often I get ideas for my installations from my long experience with Manlisher Carcano. And in the case of Radio Rhizome, I wanted to do an installation that was that kind of reflected the sense that I get or that we have when we're improvising together, in that we're all connected. Of course, it's all long distance. Nobody's in the same space as each other, especially now during COVID. So we're all in different cities. We're all connected, and we're all responding in one way or another to what each other is doing. But there's also, we're all getting very much our own version of events. And so I wanted to kind of represent that kind of, the difference between the isolation, the individual, and the group context by making an installation that had 3 kind of pods in the gallery, and using directional speakers or parabolic speakers that isolate the sound from each video, so that you barely hear it when you step out from underneath the parabolic speaker. You get a very muted blend of all 3 sounds, but when you step under one of them, you actually lose all the other sources, and you enter into one of into the individual feed that one of the components is made out of. Maybe we'll change the slide. That's just the entrance shot. Yeah. So. For this installation, I had myself and 2 other members of our ensemble created videos that were not exactly the same length. Each were roughly an hour long, that would be looping in the gallery. But we made the videos really as secondary support material to the audio soundtrack that's connected to each video. And the audio is either directly sampled from the kind of sounds that we might contribute to a jam, or or actually sampled from the radio show itself, so that the gallery, if you enter the gallery, you can enter under, maybe one more slide too, please change the slide. You can enter these kind of different pods kind of relate to different people that are jamming simultaneously, because we have so for instance, if you step into this pod, I think there's a still of my video, which is in the Dunlop Gallery, is here on that screen, and you can listen to really this virtual me, as it were, in that space, and see the images that are supporting those sounds. You can step out of it and into another one of the other 2 space pods, and hear each other's or you can kind of move around the space and get different kind of blends of the whole experience. Because I was only really in the end able to send a video, I had an interesting I was able to take it out of the context of this installation and really think about the video itself in there. And in doing so, it kind of occurred to me, or at least something that I'd heard on CBC Radio a couple of weeks ago on the program Writers and Company. A writer was being interviewed, and I'm afraid I can't remember her name, was mentioning how she thought she considered that ideas as not really belonging to her, but rather things that are bombarding herself from out there. And it's her job as a writer to really select and commit to one or two of these ideas and actually interrogate them and present the implications of these ideas. And I really like that analogy in relationship to my own work, because I think of really the work that Manisha Karkano does is almost this liminal state where ideas are bombarding us all the time. And we really have almost a suspended, what is it? It's almost like a trance state. It's strange. I've been doing this radio show for 22 years and every week. And the reason I think I keep doing it is because it gives me such, I don't know. It's a complete break from everything else that I'm doing the rest of the week. Time stops, and I just kind of enter into a dreamlike state, as it were. And then the many different sound samples that are coming to me from other people and that I'm contributing to are kind of acting like this barrage, this kind of atmosphere of ideas that I don't really have to commit to too much in the radio show. I can experience them. But then, as an artist, taking things that come from this experience and as it were, committing to them, I find has been an incredibly fruitful source for making art as a solitary artist outside of Manisha Karkano. So the title, "Am I Awake or Am I Dreaming?" kind of refers to this liminal state that I get into, that I'm in when jamming with Manisha. And I actually haven't asked other members whether they exactly experience it the same way. That's yet another kind of way in which each of us are experiencing the improvisations in very different ways. But the title really refers to, again, the video in the gallery is my own contribution to this installation, and it's basically, I started with the sounds again that I would generally, again, some of them are directly taken from the radio show, but some of them, they're basically the sounds that I would typically contribute in any given radio improvisation. And then adding the video imagery, I really wanted to use the images to support this psychological kind of emotional state that I'm in while I'm improvising. So the images are there to support the sounds first and foremost, and then to kind of further this sense of this kind of dreamlike fluidity from one idea to the next, or one image to the next, as you travel through, as it travels through the hour-long experience. For those of you in Regina and able to visit the gallery, I do urge you to come in and spend some time with it. It's the emotional states will evolve over time, I think, and this, as will the sounds and the imagery, and there's surprising nuggets, as there always is in these kind of my radio improvisations, and also surprising synchronicities, which maybe won't occur so much since it's my own contribution extracted from the rest of the jam. Okay, now I see that there's some people asking me questions. I'll quickly read them. From the bottom up, Helen Pridmore asks, can I explain the title of the Rooms show, Radio Rhizome? Yeah, it's referencing the theories of Deleuze and Guattari, the idea that as opposed to a kind of a model of social exchange where there's a tree, in which there's the roots, the trunk, and the branches. They suggested instead that rhizome might be a better model, because in the way a rhizome grows is that each plant sends out a runner and underground, and from it a completely new plant will emerge, and they can be connected. Actually, the runners aren't always underground, sorry, but so it becomes this interconnected network of different of cultural exchange, and so I thought that was descriptive of the installation, because there's these individual kind of pods of experience. They're connected, but they're also autonomous. Oh, hello, Land. Hello, Art. Well, that's it's a group short. Okay, sorry. Helen Pridmore asks. Actually, she means the title of the group show at the Rooms, which is called Hello, Land: Art, War, and the Wireless Imagination. It's a fairly extensive show based on radio, artists dealing with radio from many different perspectives, but from a particularly Newfoundland perspective, of course. And I should point out that my radio show is still broadcast on CHMR in St. John's, Newfoundland, where I used to live. So there's a reason to include a piece by me in the show. I think, although the radio was used a lot. I mean, I think there's elements of the show that have to do with the dew line and ways in which radio has been used during war, as well as art and generally the wireless imagination. So I think that's best I can do with that title, which I didn't come up with. And okay, who else asked a question? Rebecca says she likes the idea of the dreamlike state of improvising, responding to ideas. Okay, yes. No other questions, though. Yeah, Helen, thank you. I'm sorry. It's very hard to really encapsulate everything in just 15 minutes. But those of you who lucky enough to be in Regina, I urge you to go check out the show. And now I guess I'll pass it over to John Campbell for his artist's talk.
Hi, Michael. That there was awesome. It was. So I'm super, super happy that I actually got to see your installation in the gallery as I was installing. Unfortunately, the actual gallery itself, I think, is closed to the public at the minute. Maybe Sarah can talk about that at the end.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, but it was really. I'm one of the lucky few who actually got to sit in it for a long time and really enjoy it. So that was pretty great. It was. Thanks. So, hi everyone. Thanks, Sarah, for the introduction, and thanks everyone for logging in today. And thanks to the Dunlop Art Gallery for this opportunity to talk about my work. So I'm John Campbell, and I like to play with computer software, hardware, electronics, etc. I'm going to talk about my work, Recognition, which is in the Sherwood branch of the Dunlop Art Gallery. So what did I make? I made a larger-than-life artificial life form that tries to understand how a person is feeling and respond to that feeling. And what I'll cover in this talk the physical artist mannequin, i.e. the larger-than-life artificial life form, the brain that makes decisions and controls the artist mannequin, and why did I make it? So why the artist mannequin? Now, I actually brought my little model here just to keep me company when I'm doing this here, but it's in its default position, and if I consider its face here, it comes to my mind as an okay representation of a pretty neutral affect. The position the limbs are placed in can change the affect, but I don't read anything from its facial expression. Well, maybe now that it's spent so much time with me, it does seem to judge me a little bit. Can you go forward in a slide there, Sarah? Awesome. So, just back one. Yeah, that's it. Let me get into a little detail on how I made the artist mannequin. The body is carved out of wooden blocks. The dimensions are scaled up from an 18-inch artist mannequin I purchased from a local art supply store. I've used lathe to help with most of the shaping of the body parts, and this really was a great journey. The lathe is something I used many years ago, and this gave me a chance to revisit it. I may have spent too much time playing with the lathe, and now I have a large number of round wooden objects in the house. It is extremely fun. So stepping back a little and thinking about the position of the limbs to infer a mood, I looked at how the limbs move and how to move the limbs. The artist mannequin has actually got a surprising amount of movement. Then our bodies do too. The more I looked at the movement, the more complex the movement got. So early on in the project, I had to decide to limit the motion of the final sculpture. So how to move each part becomes increasingly difficult the more degrees of freedom you allow. Now I'm thinking, like, if I look at this sculpture here, and I look at even the hand here, if I move it like this here, but I can also rotate like this. And the other thing is, the closer you get to the torso, because of the suspended weight of the limbs, making the sculpture like this move, it really is quite difficult to actually lift an entire limb up from this point here. Making a sculpture move means the sculpture is more than just the artist mannequin. The mechanics and the electronics that make the movement happen become part of the sculpture too. As much as I wanted to show this, I didn't want the artist mannequin to become unrecognizable. So I took the idea of an exoskeleton off the table, and this is basically on the surface, mounting actuators, mounting things that will actually make the limbs move. Mechanically, there'd be a lot of advantages. Extra leverage to lift larger weights, simplicity to install electromechanical parts, etc. Being able to control how the sculpture moves also depends on knowing the current position of the sculpture. I didn't want to have a lot of extra complexity by placing multiple sensors around the mannequin to determine its current position. So this took simple motors and pneumatics out of the equation. One of the things I was left with was servos. These are motors, but you can instruct them to go to a particular position, and therefore you know exactly where they are. Physically, they can be placed at the joints, and they only require 2 shared power wires and a single data line to control them. Still, multiplied by 13 joints I have in the sculpture, it becomes a thing. I decided to hollow out all the limbs to both save weight and give me a place to put these wires. Now, I like talking about the process of developing a piece like this. It's part of the work, and each choice in this process impacts on the final piece. I like talking about these technical details so much. I'm actually putting together a workshop virtual studio tour series for the larger multiPLAY project, and this will be released on multiPLAY website in the second half of 2021, and details will become available on the multiPLAY social media machine near the time. So circling back to the sculpture, let's talk about its brain. So can we just move forward a slide there, sir? So the brain controls the movement, and it makes decisions based on what it sees to initiate this controlled movement. Let's think about the movement. I've programmed in a bunch of responses based on what I think a response to a particular emotion would be. So it's reflecting my choice when it moves. One of the directions I want to delve down into in the future is working with a dancer or a choreographer to allow the sculpture to mime in real-time movement and therefore make and record more elaborate responses. My partner and I have had whole debates about what was happy and what was surprise in terms of movement. And yeah, if you get to see the sculpture in the gallery, you can have a look at what the happy and surprise movements are. So how does the sculpture see? The system uses a camera to capture the person's face. It locates the face on the video frame, and it uses artificial intelligence to determine what the perceived emotion on the face is. Can we go forward a slide, Sarah? So what is the Open Computer Vision, OpenCV artificial intelligence doing to determine the emotion of the viewer? It's trained on a data set of thousands of images of people. Each image is categorized as expressing a particular emotion. The emotions being angry, disgust, fear, happy, sad, surprise, and neutral. Note, this is a team of people deciding how to categorize these images. At this point, we can immediately see a problem. Without having context, what one person may think is surprise, another may think is fear. So can we train a system on data we don't agree on ourselves? I don't know. If we take ourselves down this rabbit hole a little, and I get into the why I made this, what is a complete data set to determine the emotion of someone? Is it just their external appearance? I don't think so. We could measure pulse, blood pressure, other physiological metrics. Would we truly know the emotion of someone if we measured all these factors? Again, I don't think so. I think we have to be careful in the assumptions we draw about people from what can be a limited data set. I don't believe we can have all the data. I don't think we can know or categorize people from our narrow view into their world. Given that, even if we think we can cover most of the important factors, we should be extremely careful how we use our limited data sets to make decisions that impact others. My hope is that in watching this installation and how incoherent its responses may be to its viewers' actual emotions, it will make people, including myself, think not only on an individual level how we respond to others, but how as a group of connected people in the world, we make systems that try to automate and respond to individuals, often making large assumptions on limited information. Sarah, can you advance the slide, please? Just before I finish up, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the changes to the exhibition for these strange times we're all living in. Given the system I'm using is heavily relying on seeing the person's face in full, and given we're all masking up, I couldn't tempt people with a camera in case they demasked in the gallery. So I've used my own face as a test subject for the artist mannequin to respond to. Rather than the system triggering from a camera, I'll pop up on a monitor every 10 minutes. The sculpture will respond to my wide range of emotions, as you've seen in the previous slide. I'd like to thank the Saskatchewan Arts Board and SK Arts for the support they give me to make this. I'd like to also thank the Dunlop Art Gallery for the chance to exhibit this piece and support they give me. I'm part of the multiPLAY Canada Council for the Arts digital strategy project, and the other artists which are part of it heavily frame my current work. I'd like to thank them all. Most of all, I would like to thank my partner, Rebecca, who encourages and supports me in so many ways throughout the development of these projects. I simply couldn't do it without her. And I think we're at the end of my time here. I don't know if there's any questions, but if there's not, I'm going to pass it back to Sarah.
Great, thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to do a quick little introduction for Holophon and Ian and Ernie here. Welcome.
Hi there.
All right. Okay, so Holophon engages communities using sound as an artistic medium, promoting sound art and experimental music through live performances, concerts, workshops, community events, and educational programming. In our projects, we look for ways to unite artists and audiences across disciplines and specializations using sound as an integral artistic component. Holophon works to increase awareness of and to develop sound art practices in the province of Saskatchewan and to encourage and facilitate discussion around critical and creative listening. Holophon will be performing a short set of improvised music exploring the possibilities of sound. Holophon performers are Ian Campbell, Ryan Hall, and Ernie Dulanowski. So please do leave any questions for them in the comments section, and we will head over to our live stream here. One moment. Sorry, folks, we're just having technical difficulty. We're going to get the sound up in one moment here.
Hi, is there sound coming through? Great. So sorry. Will there be further opportunities to see and interact with this post-pandemic? That's a good question, Helen. I really hope so. I've got many ideas for going beyond what it's currently doing. I really want people to actually be able to interact with the way it was intended, which is a camera looking at the person, and it responds immediately to what it sees. I had a short video of which the screen captures that I took of my emotions is the actual live system, which is capturing and using AI to determine the emotion. So I really want to have that visual in the gallery with the sculpture, because I think it would add a lot to the actual meaning of it, because it does lose its meaning a little bit in the current incarnation for pandemic times. Now, see, Jim, you've talking to your students. So Jim Harley, so cool, John. I just showed my students some robotic work with from Gil Weinberg at the Georgia Tech. The bulbing head of the robot is maybe designed to convey emotion. I do it actually a little bit in some of the motions I've programmed. So at the minute in the gallery, the head itself moves, actually when I'm using my hand, the head itself moves forward, looks down at the monitor, moves back, and then in some of the emotions, it will actually change its position. So for instance, in fear, I tilted it back like this, and I have the sculpture running away. So I'm trying to play, but again, I touched a little bit on the problems of the number of degrees of freedom of movement that we have. It becomes quite tricky to rotate the head simultaneously to tilting it backwards and forwards. So at some point in the future, I'd maybe like to extend the range of motion, because I think our bodies are so flexible, and realizing that they're in this making this sculpture, it'd be really exciting to see that their flexibility. Though there is something as well about constraining the movement, and that there, I think, will be interesting to work with a choreographer and our dancer to see what they can do with that constrained movement as well. Teresa Connors, John, I'm curious, what program do you use for your creative coding? I generally use C code. I'm a old school programmer, and C code, I find a lot of the stuff that I need to do requires a lot of speed, and unfortunately there's a lot of libraries and they can do amazing amounts of stuff, and I use an open computer vision and it's a Python library to do a lot of decision making. But when it comes to the actual grunt work and tying things together, it needs to happen very quickly. And to do that, I need something that gives me a real-time response. And C code is my language of choice. For instance, the servos, they only move at one speed. So I'm actually sending, for every movement, I'm sending hundreds of commands every second to tell them to move to a new position, so that I can slow down and increase the speed based on that. But then it's also part of my conversation, I think, about where creativity comes into coding. I think there is a real creativity in even just plain coding. I don't even call it plain. I think there's the imaginations used. You visualize things in your head, and then you create the experience or create the outcome. So how are we going, sir? Do we have sound? One more minute. Do we have any more questions? I can't waffle on for an awful long time. I definitely have. I'm looking forward to delivering this series in the second half of the year, and we'll be talking a lot about the technology behind these sort of sculptures, and how people can make them at home, and how they can get involved, and also framing them in an artistic context, because there's a lot of material on there about the technical details, but the artistic context will, I think, I'll give people a few ideas. So Helen, thanks, John. I hope so too. Love to see it in action. I loved the idea of working with a dancer. Yep, I really do, Helen. I think it's definitely going to be a place where I'm going to end up going.
Thank you so much, John. We've got everything fixed, so we are going to go over to the Holophon Performance.
Okay, no problems.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
I think we're just restarting here so we can get some sound. We're just give it one more try here. Thank you everyone for your patience. Thank you so much. What an amazing performance. There were so many details. I feel like I could watch that on repeat and find something new in it every time. Amazing. Thank you so much, Holophon. Let's take a couple questions from the audience. I did see one that I'm going to address here really quickly from Stacy. They had a question about the Dunlop, and specifically it was, can they go to the Dunlop to interact with this at the moment, or after semi-lockdown after April 26th? So currently the library and Dunlop Art Gallery are closed to the public, but do stay tuned on Dunlop Art Gallery's social media pages. We are hoping to do a walkthrough of the display shortly, and if things do open up after they kind of reevaluate on the 26th, this is up until May 2nd, so you may have a chance to come in and view that then. All right. We've got a couple comments here about your performance, Ian and Ernie. Helen Pridmore loves the sound of the reel. And Rebecca said, loving the film, sound layers, and textures.
None of the sound that we heard in that piece were actually from Ian's rig. That was all generated by my little bag of tricks.
Yeah. Helen, what you were hearing was purely in your own mind.
Now, there have been occasions when Ian and I have performed together when we were able to still do so live, where I would, Ian would have a contact mic, say, on that manually cranked projector, and I could funnel that sound into my rig and process it. But that was not the case today.
Wow, thank you so much. Any other questions? We'll open it up to the audience if you have any questions for Ernie or Ian, who are part of that Holothon performance that we just saw. I'll give you a moment to... Oh, there we go. We've got a question here from Rebecca. Tell us what was happening. That's a big question.
Well, the green image on the one side was me, and the kind of bluish image on the other side was Ernie, and we were both kind of working with our own tools. I use a projector and a laptop and some like 35 millimeter film like this. And what does Ernie use?
Well, I'm going to detach my camera and show everyone. So there's the little synthesizer I was using. You can't really see the front panel for the forest of patch cords, but that's a small little modular synthesizer. Some of it's analog, some of it's digital, and there's bits that can do some like delay and looping. And this little green guy at the side here makes random signals to add a bit of variety to the sounds we heard. And then that little box there with the orange display is a sound computer that does looping, and it's controlled by these controllers right there.
I think there's a question from WL. I don't know. I find it.
I think he's asking us for some sort of dissertation there.
Yeah, no. I think it's definitely great that we have all of this streaming technology in the COVID times. Holophon, I think, has been trying to find the best streaming software solutions, and you know, we're still playing around with the technology, and as have the multiPLAY ensemble. I don't know. I think it's alienating. I know when I'm teaching on Zoom, it's a really alienating experience, but at the same time, it keeps us, at least there's some tiny little bit of life that we've got between people, performers, and just everybody. We're all living in the same kind of virtual world. Ernie, do you have anything to say?
Not really. I think you pretty much summed it up. I think you have encapsulated Holophon's view on that.
Amazing. Well, it doesn't look like we have... Oh, we do have one more question from WL. They said, but then the medium itself is itself implicated. It also puts me in mind of the famous Benjamin article on mechanical reproduction. Any thoughts?
I mean, it's a bit of an echo machine. I think that we can push stuff out into the void, and we can constantly kind of reproduce things, and I think that's what the technology is great for. I like to go back to the analog, which has a tiny little bit of the aura, I guess, that Benjamin was talking about, and I like to kind of start to destroy the image by taking the film and like wearing it out, so that it's a little bit, the analog is a little bit about sort of an anti-digital statement, maybe. I don't know.
Great. Thank you so much, Ernie and Ian. So we've actually come to the end of our program today. I'm going to add in John and Michael here to join us for our goodbyes. I wanted to give a huge thank you to Michael, John, Ian, and Ernie, and to all of the multiPLAY and Holophon artists. And thank you to all of the viewers for tuning in to tonight's program. Before we wrap things up, I do have one quick thing for you folks to do. If you don't mind filling out an evaluation form, it just takes a moment, and we really value your feedback. It helps us provide programs like this in the future for you. They are anonymous as well, and I will post the link here in the chat for you. And a reminder again that you can check out the multiPLAY display at the Dunlop Art Gallery if things do open up. It is open again until May 2nd. And then you can also check out our Instagram and Facebook pages for any details there as well. Do stay tuned for the next multiPLAY event, which is going to take place on Tuesday, April 27th from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Dunlop Art Gallery's Facebook and YouTube pages, just as it did this evening, where lead artist Rebecca Kane and a number of multiPLAY artists will outline their work on the wider project. And be sure to register for that at reginalibrary.ca for an event reminder and to receive the links to view. You can also find more about multiPLAY by visiting multiplay.ca, and you can find out more about Holophon by visiting holophon.ca. All right, everyone, have a fantastic evening. Take care.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.